Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Ask the YAs. We've heard from a lot of you that you're really struggling with telephone anxiety, and so many services at the moment are offered via telephone, and that's really preventing you from being able to access the support you need. So this episode we're entirely focusing on the topic of telephone anxiety, and our young ambassadors are going to be sharing their experiences of struggling with telephone anxiety and giving some hints of tips of how to overcome it.
So I have definitely struggled with telephone anxiety, and that's for both making phone calls and receiving phone calls. And to kind of describe the ways that it felt to me was obviously I felt very anxious about it, and often very scared just to see my phone ringing or at the thought of making a phone call, even if it was for my own good, for example, like ringing up the doctors or the dentist. But also I felt really silly about it, like about the fact that I felt anxious because it's just a phone call, that it's something that people do every day, like some people's jobs are this, and feeling anxious about it to me felt silly. And obviously it's not, it's something very justified, it is something very scary, um, and it's something different. And often if you don't know who you're speaking to at the end of the line, it can be very, very daunting. Um, and the fact that you feel anxious about it you shouldn't make yourself think that you're silly or that you're stupid for feeling that way, because it is very much justified. It's just learning about how you can feel less that way so that you're more comfortable when you're making and receiving phone calls.
Telephone anxiety, yeah, it's something that I've struggled with. I think lots of young people do. They get kind of nervous talking over the phone. For me, it's because I don't really know when it's my turn to talk, or I don't really know how what I'm saying is being interpreted, so I get quite anxious about it.
So telephone anxiety is an interesting aspect of generalized anxiety. I think it's particularly interesting because lots of people experience it who may not experience day-to-day general anxiety or be diagnosed with anxiety or panic disorder. So it's a lot more common than you might think. Now, we've probably all had a moment where the phone calls rang and we've been very stressed out at the moment or something like that, and you just panic because you don't know what to do with the fact that the phone is ringing. It's another thing on top of you. So that is one aspect of telephone anxiety. However, there's also a more common version where it's simply talking to someone, picking up the phone or sudden phone calls or anything like that, no matter your situation, just puts you on the spot and it makes you feel unprepared and therefore nervous, and then that generalizes into anxiety. So for me, I definitely experienced this around the time I was 2016, 2017. I was 16, 17 years old. I think I was just going in and grasping the responsibilities of adulthood. So I was having to answer a lot of calls and do a lot more calls to like the bank and stuff, which I wasn't used to doing. So I think that definitely affected me, and I think it made me feel confused more than anything, because I've always been a very confident person and I was confused about why I was suddenly feeling all these nervous, like having this nervous reaction to talking on the phone, which is something I've always been fine doing.
To cope with it, I'd say I come up with like sort of scripts in my head of like what I know I'm going to start the conversation off with, and then if I know how I'm going to start, it's a lot easier to like follow on, because normally the hardest part is starting with it. So if you've got that down, then the rest kind of flows a little bit better, if you know what I mean.
How I prepared myself and how I overcame this challenge, I think, was looking back on something that I used to love when I was younger, which was acting. So in 2017, I got a job at Chinese takeaway and I was working on the front desk. So this meant I had to answer the call all the time. I had some good customers, some regular customers, some not so nice customers, and it was a lot of a very different experience to anything that I'd ever done before, and it also definitely triggered certain aspects of my telephone anxiety because I was constantly forced into that situation. However, with my acting experience, I was able to create a character of some sorts, which had a script and the way of saying things, who could then address these problems. And by creating this character, I was able to slip into this role and avoid overthinking things.
So how I overcame my like telephone anxiety, I guess it's something that I'm still working on. So it's a process and it's just kind of working on feeling less anxious about it for me. And ways of doing this is I kind of practice phone calls. I say that loosely. It's more like phone calls with friends, for example, because a lot of them know that I just don't answer the phone because I'm not comfortable with doing it. So we arrange a time that, okay, I'll call you at 8 o'clock. So I know that my phone's going to ring then, and I'm expecting it. I know who the person's going to be, and often I know what we want to talk about. So that is a great place to start, I've found. And then maybe getting that person to say, okay, I'll call you today. And then maybe, okay, I'll call you this week. So kind of loosening it up a bit, because often when we have phone calls in life, like, you're going to expect it. So if you've called the doctors, you might expect them to call back, but you don't know when it's going to be. If you apply for a job, you might be expecting a call back. Again, you won't know when that's going to be, or they might give you a rough time frame. So kind of practicing expecting a call is kind of useful, because when you see it, you're like, oh, okay, they've called, right, let's start. And often I practice what I want to say on the phone, even just the hello. Because often once you've started speaking and you've started getting to the point you want, it's a lot easier just to flow. But I also write notes, which is definitely a great tip, either of what I want to say or what the person is saying on the phone, and then any questions I want to ask whilst they're telling me this information, so that then I don't forget, and then I'm not worrying about forgetting stuff. And because often people ask on the phone, like, oh, is there anything else? And then you can look back at your notes. I often take them off as I go, just so I know, okay, I have said everything that I want, I didn't miss anything. I'm just checking that that person again didn't want to have anything to say, because if not, you're going to have the phone call again, which isn't a big deal at the end of the day. It's no big drama, but obviously for some of us it does feel that way. And I think that's everything I have to say.
We really hope that you find these helpful. If you need any more help or information, please get in touch and keep those questions coming using the hashtag AskTheYAs on our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram pages, and the team will be here next week answering your questions. Thank you.